So, back in the day, at good old Our Voice Initiative, as it was originally called, I used to work with a woman named LaDonna Lokey. And LaDonna did social media. Pretty much she was the queen of our social media platforming. She was able to build our Twitter account, and she worked close with Michelle Streisand, who was doing most of the Facebook work. And myself, I just started, I was a writer and then an editor and then just kind of handled the stuff on that end. But with me today is LaDonna Lokey. She no longer works with Our Voice USA, but she does a whole lot of really important political work, and I want to get to know more about that. How's it going, LaDonna?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, and I also want to mention she's in a, what's the name of your podcast, LaDonna?
Move Left Idiots is our podcast that we do.
Move Left Idiots.
Yeah.
It's really good. Okay. So, LaDonna, I guess diving in, what are you doing now?
I'm insane. I'm working across 3 different campaigns, and then I also work with a romance author. So across those campaigns, I kind of do whatever's needed. I mean, some people think of me in terms of a comms director kind of role, and I definitely do some of that work. But so what it is that there are different roles on campaigns, and not every campaign, particularly the progressives that I support, can afford to have someone in every one of these roles.
Right.
Sometimes they're run by volunteers, sometimes they just don't have it. And so what I try to do is be as flexible as I can with clients based on what they need. So for some clients, really what they need is to build up their social media following, grow their Facebook likes, grow their Twitter followers, all of that kind of stuff, Instagram. For some, they need more of the communications put together. So all of their messaging on their platform, whether it's, based on things that are trending at the moment or just things that relate back to what they care about, all of that stuff. But then I do other things like email fundraising and exchanging lists and trying to build coalitions with other campaigns. And so it's, there's never a one day that's the same as the one before it. And I guess that's what makes it good and exciting.
Wow. When do you find time to sleep?
I'll answer that in November.
Maybe we have something in common.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So you said you're spread across a few progressive candidates. Do you want to name who those candidates are?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly public from my Twitter feed. So I'm working with Levy Sanders. I'm working with Bill Cimbrello and Ruben Major in California.
Awesome. And
the romance author will be private.
The romance offer will be private. That's fine.
Yes.
But the same kind of work there.
Yeah.
So Levy Sanders, is that any relation to Bernie Sanders?
That would be his son, his one and only.
Wow, that is the one and only, that's the son that we've all heard about.
Yeah.
How is that campaign going?
Good. I mean, he got in a little bit late, and so, we had to play catch up, but we have our feet under us now, and things are really starting to move. And, some polls say he's trying to get second in the race. So we're super excited.
That's awesome. Awesome. And the other two are doing well, I take it?
They are. Yeah. We're, so California's elections are top 2. And so it could be 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, whatever. And so this is a Secretary of State candidate. Obviously the incumbent is number 1, but we're neck and neck for number 2. So we're super excited about that. And then the candidate in Massachusetts is an interesting one because the incumbent is fairly centrist and, tends to vote with the establishment and has never been challenged from the left or had a primary challenger before since he's been in this district. So, and it's a district that Bernie won. So that's a huge opportunity for us to hopefully flip a seat that nobody's looking at.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. I sure hope you guys do it.
Yeah.
So from from my perspective, in trying to get volunteers to activate and work for cause, and hell, to even just retweet and like things, do you find it difficult to keep volunteers whenever you're trying to get folks to come underneath you as far as getting social media to move forward? Like maybe, I don't know, in my experience, I get someone and they'll give me about a week's worth of effort and they'll really be gung-ho about it, and then they just kind of disappear.
Volunteers are always a challenge. They always have been on campaigns because people tend to be money motivated, right? And so if they have the option to do something and get paid for it, or to, do something and not, they tend to choose where they're going to get paid. But that said, what I try to do is offer some sort of a carrot, some sort of an opportunity. So if there's something that an individual really wants to learn about that I know about, then I can partner with them on that and help them grow their skills. Some campaigns it's easier on than others. If they really like the candidate and want to know the candidate, then some candidate contact can be a motivator for people. Yeah. Sometimes if they're college students, you can offer to give them a reference or an employment reference later. So there's lots of different ways to keep people engaged. And I think that the trick is, first of all, the biggest mistake that campaigns make is not getting back with volunteers, people who raise their hand. If you wait a week, 2 weeks, a month to get back to them, it's very likely that they've moved on to someone else who did jump on that opportunity. And I think all of the progressive campaigns that I work on have to get better about this, about getting our act together and getting in front of people and making it easy for them is the other part. So
wow, so you could blame a little bit of the loss on just making sure admin is
right.
Tight and tidy. Yeah, getting the nuts and bolts going.
Yeah.
Not so much the message or even the people that are at the top. It's more just the basics, right? Pick the phone up.
Simple things. Yeah. I mean, first of all, if they sign up, have an email that goes right back out to them, letting them know someone will get back with them, and then actually, make sure that you do that. And then, even if you don't have your act together as far as all the things you want them to do or, having regular meetings, there are things that we're exploring on other campaigns using texting, where if you want them to share out a certain Facebook message, you can just text it out to everybody. They can just click on it and go ahead and share that to a couple groups. The same things with Twitter, just get them to retweet things easily. We know from these algorithms now that very often the messages we want to get in front of people aren't, whether we're shadow banned or, the establishment, has all of their stuff in front or whatever's happening. People don't always see the messages. And so the more that we can get in front of their eyes in other ways outside of these apps and platforms, I think the better chance we have of spreading the word about what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hear you on that front. There's plenty of progressive folks that I follow and watch on YouTube that people get unsubscribed after they've subscribed, or they'll hit the bell and then the bell goes blank again.
Yeah, I don't even know what's happening. I've mentioned recently too on Twitter, I've noticed my accounts are suddenly following like crazy right-wingers that I would never, myself or the candidates would never follow. So what's happening that there's something insidious going on there. I can't put my finger on it, but they're really trying to push a different agenda in front of us.
Oh, that happened like 3 times to the Progressive Rampage account, which did at Progressive Ram 1, but honestly, we just started. I only have like, I think 160 something people following me. And
so there
all
you
of a
go.
sudden, I followed like 5 MAGA people. And I'm like, where the fuck did these people come from? Right?
Exactly. Like, I know this was not me. So something's happening here. And I mean, it's obvious for those. There's other ones that are a little bit more, it's hard to say for sure. Obviously, the ones that are the most out there and egregious in the things that they're saying gets in front of you, like, you didn't do that. But then there's some other ones that are, sort of more centrist people, and you're like, I don't think I did, but it's hard to say. So
it's a little subtle, yeah. Maybe we just agree on Israel and we don't agree on this other stuff.
Right. So it's tough to keep track of, but there's something going on. I can say that.
Yeah, that's for sure. One other thing I've noticed, and I don't know if you guys ever shoot in this direction when you're trying to do your outreach to get your candidate more widely known in his district or her district. Something we're trying to do at Our Voice right now is reaching out to people who aren't within our bubble, because we know we can get retweets from folks who have like mind, or at least who know what we're driving to do. I mean, we are staying nonpartisan, but to be honest, the majority of the people following us are progressives. They're Republican and Democrat progressive, but they're progressives nonetheless. They're not really the hardcore conservatives, the Tea Party, all those folks. And we really do want to level the playing field. So we've been trying different tactics, reaching out to people who have no idea who we are. And is there anything that you tend to try with your candidates to reach outside the bubble, as it were?
A lot of that happens more in our field operations. So for canvassing, it's, the knock every door strategy. It's don't just assume that because the party has this house marked as this, that's, the case, because the data is just very flawed across whatever platform you use, I found. So a lot of it happens in field strategy. In online world, it's tough because you do tend to get more siloed and be around more people in the bubble. I do try to do, we have these little, and you probably are a part of some of them in Twitter, there's like a DM group. And so it's certain people that are supportive of the cause of the candidate or whatever, and you invite them all into a group, and then you can all share each other's message and, sometimes just BS, whatever. So I'll reach out to influencers like that I know are supportive of the candidate and try to get them to participate in that way to grow the message. But yeah, I mean, it does tend to be supporters. Outside the bubble, it's much more difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every now and then our voice gets followed by someone that does have MAGA and the hashtag. And I make it a point never to block anyone.
Right.
And I only mute if someone gets belligerent for more than a day. Like if it's just one day and they got, they wanted to go on a tirade, that's cool. I don't really mind. But if it's just daily, then of course they're a troll and I have to get them out of the feed so we can do something else. But, every now and then I will try to troll the person who followed who was that quote MAGA person unquote and see what it is that they think and try to find some way I can edge our nonpartisan message into them so that they'll realize that this is something for everyone and not just the left trying to skew the vote or something,
Yeah. It's super challenging when you're trying to be nonpartisan, but I mean, the one issue that for me has been a uniter, I think with progressives, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or whatever, has been campaign finance reform and getting rid of corruption. We, the people, all want changes in that. I mean, unless you're talking about the 1%ers, the 99% are united on that. I feel like if we could all really, get together on that one issue, so much would be fixed in politics, and it's frustrating.
That would be interesting. Yeah, it seems like economics really do kind of unite everyone, and then they come up with social things to tear us back down and keep us divided.
Right.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about that in the podcast earlier. Where do you see, and please be honest here, and not including your candidates that you're working for, of course, because obviously you expect them to win, but where do you see the blue wave actually landing in 2018 at the end of this year?
Sigh. I think we're going to see a mixture of things. I mean, we've had some real progressives win, and interestingly, those have been in the races that I think many of us weren't even really tracking, that just sort of did go under the radar. And then a lot of the ones, the major progressives that we were all really hoping for. So, Paula Jean Swearingen and Dennis Kucinich, some of those people, they did okay, but, obviously didn't win. So I think we're still up against a lot when it comes to fighting money in politics, and the establishment is still continuing to put its finger on the scale in all of these races and is now fine with apparently just openly deciding who they're going to back and who they're not. And so we'll obviously have some people that are more centrist or that are incumbents that will win many of those races. I do think that we'll flip some seats. I think that's going to be a mix of real progressives and then more of the centrists that the establishment is supporting.
Yikes. Yeah. Did you hear about the recent, it was a lawsuit win for Tim Canova down in Florida. I think that just happened today, where he sued with the Debbie Wasserman Schultz race that he was in. And it turned out that they illegally threw away a bunch of ballots.
Yeah. And what is the recourse for something like that? Whether it's
That's what everyone's asking.
In that race, or whether you look at all of the flaws that happened in 2016 in states like California and New York, where people were taken off the voter rolls. I mean, there was a period of time for a while after the 2016 race when there was a big push for a revote. And I think a lot of that was suppressed because, and I think it's, suppressed by the government because it would throw our country into chaos. There would be rioting. I think it would be really unsettling, and
it would disrupt the timeline. That would cause so much more infighting than we even have right now with with all the other background noise?
So I'm really torn on it, but I think it's important that people like Tim continue to expose these things. We've seen that there were lots of issues in just the California Democrats convention, places where they were doing all sorts of shenanigans. Stephen Jaffe was a victim of some of that. They told him he needed X number of signatures to be considered for an endorsement, and then suddenly changed it and didn't tell him, and then said, "Oh, you're one short." I mean, this stuff, it's obvious, but we just need to keep talking about it and figure out what we're going to do moving forward. Whether you're going to Dem exit and really try to build infrastructure on a new party, or Dem enter, or some combination of those things, we have to keep talking about it, and we can't allow things like the Unity Reform Commission to just kind of go off into the ether and not be held accountable for the things that they promise. You promise you're going to make reforms, and then many are suggested and you say you're going to do them, and then nothing happens. Well, this is why I tell people, do not donate to the party, either party. Just don't. Donate to a candidate that you support. The money will be used directly for that campaign. And, by weakening the party infrastructure, that's really the only way that I can think of to send a message to them. But then, what it does is it forces them to look for money in other places. So like in New Hampshire, they're looking to charge $37,500 for the list of registered voters.
Oh my goodness!
In their party, and I learned this on Levy's campaign, and it's public. Whereas the Republicans are giving their list for free.
That is incredible. It's as if the Republicans don't mind if somebody's trying to infiltrate, but the Democrats are like putting their back against the wall and building this like cash barrier to keep people out.
That's exactly what they're doing. And so there are other places where we can go to get this information. You can get bits from the Secretary of State. There are data services that have some of it. And I think they're seriously overinflating the importance of some of their historical data. A lot of it's crap. Anyway, definitely not worth paying $37,000. Even if I had it on a campaign, I wouldn't do it. But it just shows how broke they are and how twisted they are and how backwards their priorities are. It's the most undemocratic thing that I can think of. And
that is so amazing. Yeah. Well, I mean, one silver lining I can definitely take from all of this. And I hope the people out there that are becoming woke, that are waking up, that are paying attention to politics now, and they've never paid attention before, is that even though you're not getting exactly what you want immediately, we all have to remember that as Americans, we have a problem with that, and we need to recognize deferred gratification. And these are actually positive steps forward. Like Tim Canova, he won his lawsuit. Now, is anything going to come from that? Is Debbie Wasserman Schultz going to be linked to any of the nefarious activity? Are they going to have a runoff vote? No, of course not. But it did expose it. It's kind of like the lawsuit against the DNC for Bernie Sanders getting robbed in the primary. It exposed how they really feel about this. And that kind of started this whole waterfall effect of all of these things coming out in the open.
And it reaffirms for a lot of us, we're not crazy. We get told, oh, well, there's none of that really going on. You guys are not. No, it's really going on. And in fact, it's much worse than any of us realize. It's far worse. And so we have to continue to beat the drum until people start to listen. But, I struggle because there was a point in time where I said, okay, well, my thing is going to be to support candidates that support campaign finance reform, get them into office, and we'll start to fix this.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize that we have no election integrity. And so
how the hell are you going to get him in office?
How do you get him in office if you have no election integrity? So then, and that's why Ruben's race was important to me, fighting for real election integrity, things like secret software. If you have Microsoft or Oracle or, any of these major companies using proprietary software on machines, we can never truly audit it. That's their software. That's their code.
We need transparency.
Exactly. And then we have, foreign governments and foreign countries, software and machines from them. And I'm not saying that you have to necessarily distrust them because they're a big company or because they're a foreign country. I'm just saying we need transparency. The people deserve a look at this. We need to return to paper ballots. We can figure out the counting portion of it because we know that paper ballots themselves, hanging chads and all of that were problems too. But so election integrity. And I never paid attention. I thought I was very involved in politics, but I never paid attention to Secretary of State races until I started to realize just how messed up our elections are, and that now we have to start there. So I'm not picking or choosing now. It's not, oh, are you corporate or are you supporting? It's I'm trying to do a little bit of both and support them all at the same time.
Yeah, really, I'm looking for people with integrity. I'm looking for people who at least understand the reality of that there are steps to the process of getting to where you need to be, but that they actually know where they're trying to go, and they're not giving me lip service. It's really easy to pick it out. Like if I hear, I don't know what your feelings are on these people, but when I listen to Joe Biden speak about trying to give a free community college, that's like an olive branch. It feels like it doesn't feel like he has a goal of getting publicly funded college out to everybody.
They're co-opting the message.
They are. And I hear Kamala Harris mention healthcare and just saying stuff like access to healthcare for everyone. They throw these words in there to try to fool the public because people are only half listening to the news. But really what they're doing is they're guaranteeing that they can't be, confronted for saying something and then not doing it.
Yeah, it's an art.
Picking their words.
I hate to say that I learned some of that art when I did work in the corporate world, and so it's even more obvious to me now when I see candidates doing it. And I think though more people are waking up to it and starting to realize it. If you go on somebody's website and you don't see any issues and you don't see them really saying much of anything, that's an answer for me in and of itself. If they're not really talking about where they stand or they're being vague about it, or using words like access, then they're not going to really be there for you. They're not going to keep their word. And I think that that's part of why we have Trump. I hate to say it, but I really think that part of it is just people got so tired of the bullshit, of the doublespeak and people legislating by poll and, trying to figure which way the wind was blowing. There was no moral compass there, no set of beliefs, whether it's somebody like Hillary Clinton or Biden or whatever. They don't move based on what their beliefs are. They go based on what they think they can get away with, or what the people, want at that moment. And so I think that as much as we all abhorred many of the things that Trump said, people at least had a sense that he believed himself what he was saying, and that, if nothing else, you knew what you were getting. And I think there were too many question marks with other candidates.
That is a pretty bold statement, and I would say highly accurate. The only side effect, I think, was that maybe on a couple of things that I thought would be great, he did not follow through with. Like he did make comments about how there's no reason for us to be in hot wars all over the place, and we have too many military bases, right? Mm-hmm. I was thinking, I was like, I don't want him to win, but by God, if he did, at least we would have somebody paying attention to how much money we're throwing away in the military-industrial complex. And then he just expands the shit. So that might be actually, the career folks out there. I won't say the DS word that's
right
off, but the folks who are in the government for a very long time probably approached him and said, that's not going to fly. Sorry. Did you see how Obama didn't get it done either?
Yeah, I'm sure that something happens, either while they're being considered for the role, and then shortly thereafter, a conversation with, I don't know. I mean, I'm not total conspiracy theorist, but I do think that there are forces that kind of make decisions on this stuff. Whether you talk about groups like Bilderberg or just, I don't know, whether it's a group of billionaires that decide what they're going to rally around. I do think that they make some decisions that heavily influence the rest, and so I think that they pick who they think is going to be the most malleable and the person that they can control the most. And we know that Trump has a lot of skeletons, not even in his closet anymore, just right out in the open.
Yeah. How much more in the open can they be?
Right.
Grab them by the skeletons. Yeah. And it's not a conspiracy to say there are things that happen behind closed doors that we don't know for whatever varying reasons they might have, but the best logical conclusions we can make is that someone claimed they would do this, and then they were shown, no, this is what reality is, and nobody gets to know that.
And for sure, with regard to the military-industrial complex, that's the case.
Oh yeah, for sure. But anyway, hope springs eternal. I'd love to see that guy disappear in 2020. I don't know that he's going to be pulled out any earlier, but
it doesn't seem like it, and it seems like no matter what he does, that they'll keep him in because they're getting the tax breaks they want and certain other things, so they'll let everything else slide. He could have been gone right away with the emoluments clause. They could have gotten rid of him, but they didn't want to.
Yeah.
So
So, LaDonna, I happen to know that through gleaning from talking with you in the past, when you used to work in the corporate world for Microsoft, I believe, you also used to lean Republican.
I did.
And I'm very curious to know what exactly, can you walk me through like an executive summary of how you kind of went from there to trying to help out people who are focused on Bernie and progressivism?
Sure. So I was a longtime Republican. I was a Republican even when I had blue hair and braids back in high school and college. It made zero sense, right, to anyone but me.
Punk Republican.
At that time, I was very pro-life, and I was raised Catholic, and so I'd seen lots of images and horrible things about abortion, and that was for me one issue that I wasn't going to move on, and so that was important to me, and then I think other components of it, just the idea of fiscal conservatism, that the numbers need to add up at the end of the day. That resonated with me, and also I felt like that I had done a lot of things on my own, through hard work. I've done very well in my career without a college degree. I've had lots of success that way, and so I had that perception. Oh well, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Well, it's bullshit. It's total bullshit. And there's a million reasons why. But so, I worked in the corporate world. I was at Countrywide during the mortgage meltdown. I was at Citigroup when their stock was at 99 cents. That was my last big corporation. I was at Microsoft when they were deep in battle with Google for talent and all of that. So I saw some amazing things, and I saw some things that I really did not like. And it was making me sick. It was physically making me ill, to the point that I said, I can't continue to do this. I can't lend whatever talent I have to this machine to continue this bullshit any longer. And so, for health reasons and other reasons, I stepped away, and I just had a major, what the fuck am I going to do, couple of years. And I had everything that they say you're supposed to have. I had 6 months salary saved. I had, my 401k had been killed by Countrywide, but I had, decent, financial situation. And over time, all of that got eroded, and, some family things and other stuff happened. And I wound up homeless with my family.
Oh my goodness.
I don't talk about this a ton with people. And I think at the time I felt very ashamed, like, oh my God, I'm horrible. And how could I let myself end up like this and all of that. And since then I've been able to come to terms with it. And actually I consider it now to have been a huge gift and a huge blessing.
Oh, wow.
It really did open my eyes to the many, many gifts that I had, whether it's having parents that had good communication skills, or for the most part, having two parents in my household, or, the gift of being able to move around the country. My parents were military, and, so, learning about different kinds of people, just so many different things that I never acknowledged gave me a leg up. And when I was right there face to face with so many people who didn't have what I had, and for me, it was hard enough to pull myself out of that, as I eventually did. But for some of these people, it's impossible. One person started getting pregnant when she was 14, had 4 children, had 2 of the fathers of her children murdered, or actually one was murdered and one OD'd. Never got her GED, had only had just very basic level education. And this girl was a fighter. I mean, she was tough. She fought for her kids, and, up until we were together in the shelter, she'd kept a roof over their heads and all of that. But just, too many things happened. And like so many people in this country, if you don't have, a good safety net, you can wind up there. And the statistic says that the bulk of Americans don't even have $500 for a car repair or rent or whatever. So what happens if you're in that situation and then you get laid off from a job? Then you get an eviction. Then you get, or foreclosed upon. Then you get a car repo, and all of these things build up. And what was amazing to me as I learned about this was that the social safety nets that I thought were there weren't.
It's like the dominoes just fall right through the board. There's nothing there.
They do. And what's worse is, so public housing, as one example, you think, oh, well, okay, somebody's poor, they can go get into public housing. Well, first of all, there's waits. Some places, something like a Section 8 list isn't even open and hasn't been for 5 years. With public housing, the other thing is that if you've had an eviction or even ever been late on any bill, they have reason to decline you. Think about that.
Wait a minute. These are people that are destitute already.
And
of course they have late bills.
The federal statutes, right? And so, and this is done unevenly in the country. So there are some places that, where there are less people in competition, maybe they don't really pay attention to those things, and others where housing is more scarce. Yeah, you can get declined for that. And so what the hell are you supposed to do if now you're homeless, you're in a shelter, you had an eviction? Who is going to rent to you if not public housing? Like, where are you going to go? It's so difficult. So I saw all of this, and the other piece that was just overwhelming to me was the people in that shelter. Most of them would give you their last potato, the shirt off their back, would sit for hours, like consoling you if you had a hard day. I mean, we were like in it together.
Wow. Yeah.
Many of those people I'm still very close with, and it's been great to see most of them find their way out of that. A couple of them I've seen continue to struggle, and try to do what I can for them, and but it's hard. And so all of that together, and it didn't happen, there was no one moment, it was a lot of moments and a lot of time of sitting and thinking. And Bernie Sanders, obviously many of us got together in this movement because of him, and he spoke truth to me, and speaking to how it was so rigged and how everything was favored the corporations and favored this echelon of people that none of us will ever reach. It's not going to happen. Even if you win the lottery, you're not going to hit the level of wealth that these people have, or privilege. And so a lot of that was really eye-opening for me, and it made me change. It made me want to, I had always been someone that tried to help family members that struggled. I had done volunteering and that kind of thing, but it just made me realize that wasn't enough, and that we need a whole awakening of the entire system to make change. And so the reason why I got out of politics, I had actually worked in politics when I was in college back in DC. I was working for a Republican congressman, and I saw so much corruption back then. It was during the Lewinsky era, so I'm aging myself.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
It was such an ugly time. I got out of it. But
right.
The same thing that made me get out of it made me get back into it, because there is so much corruption. And I now feel like I have maybe not all the right tools, but certainly better tools to be able to affect change in the system. And so
you have a unique lens to see it all through too, I have to say. So it lends you a little bit of extra credibility in my eyes, because you can see what we all see now, and of being able to view it from a different circumstance. And plus with your shift in economic status as well, you're able to see it through different eyes. I would say any campaign that has you on their team is lucky to have you.
Oh, well, thank you. I do feel, as hard as it was, I'm in the thick of it, I'm telling you, I was not thankful for it at all.
Hell no.
I remember, the first day being in the shelter, and somebody gave me a brand new, really soft blanket. And I hadn't been street homeless, but I had been, like housing insecure and staying in motels and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was that one thing, or a really nice cup of hot chocolate, just these little things that can make you feel seen and feel like a person again. And so I think, we need obviously top to bottom change, but we also need just this day-to-day change in making sure that we really see one another and connect, and that we don't just, look at our lane and ignore everything on either side of us. I think we've all get guilty of that at times. Sometimes it's hard to look when you're out getting food somewhere and you see somebody that's homeless. It's hard to look at that. You don't want to look, because you don't want to think that could ever be you.
I really think that kind of thing is from training, home training, life training, skills that you develop as you learn to operate in our society. And I really think that the true human condition is what you experienced with people like listening to you and giving you that blanket. That's what it really is to be a human being. And that doesn't come from having or not having money. That just comes from almost sometimes maybe even the money has to be stripped away for people to realize that.
I feel that way. That probably couldn't have happened any other way for me. And you know, Republicans get that criticism a lot that we don't really, I'm not one anymore, but when I was, that, you know, we had to experience things in order to really get them. And I hate to say it, but that was true for me in that one issue, that I really had no clue. You know, we weren't rich growing up, but we weren't in poverty. And so I had no idea just how difficult it can be for some people. And so, you know, like my Angela says now, I wouldn't trade nothing for my journey now. I can look back and be thankful, but that doesn't mean it was easy.
But hell, absolutely not. It was not easy. And I would say that that's probably the biggest scale of taking yourself out of a comfort zone in order to learn something. Obviously, you didn't do it on purpose, but I would have to say that the biggest lessons I've ever learned, the ones that really impacted my life, have always occurred, and not to the extreme circumstance that you saw, but me being completely yanked right out of my comfort zone and having to deal with it on my own, or having to learn who it is I really can lean on in order to get through this. And
that's so true.
You learn so much more through that. And I would have to say to all those out there who are thinking of volunteering, or might want to support a candidate, or just want to go and support a cause like a blood drive, or work for Normal or something, go do it. No matter how scared. In fact, the more scared you are, the more important it is for you to go and do that.
Absolutely.
It will change your life.
Yeah, growth begins where comfort ends. And I can think of many, many times in my life where I've been terrified. When I first was a recruiter and started cold calling, I remember looking at the phone for 20 minutes and going, like I can never, you know. And now I'm on the phone all the time, right? And the same for career opportunity. A lot of career changers don't know how to make the shift from one thing to another. And I say, volunteer, raise your hand, do something, learn a new skill. And sometimes you do have to work for free or for very little to be able to get your foot in the door, and then you gain the experience and then you get paid for it, you know, if you can. And not everybody, you know, can afford to take the time. If you're working 2 or 3 jobs, I get it. I'm not gonna, you know, I don't judge for that.
Right.
You know, but if for those that are out there and have the ability, when you volunteer, you get so much more than you give, you know, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, whatever, whoever you're working with, you get back so much more from that than any time you put into it.
Hear, hear. I have to agree with that. In fact, I will admit that I'm a professional chef. That's what I've done for my whole adult life for my career. Prior to that, I was a telemarketer. So I know what it is to learn how to get through the cold call fear.
Right.
Volunteering for Our Voice, had it been something else, it would have been something else. But whatever, the founder, Sam, just happened to find me on Twitter, actually, and said, come write for us.
Yeah.
And so I went in there and I gave it 110%. And now it is my path to try to shift my career. I don't make any money at any of this.
That's how it starts. That's okay.
But that's not the point. That's not even why I'm here. I've been doing it more than a year now, and money has been is not even the focus of the organization.
Right.
Trying to change something, you know?
Well, and I want to address something else too, because there are a lot of people in this movement that will say something like, you know, money is inherently evil, and that will try to shame, you know, people like me or others who do charge for our services. And to that, you know, I think about you. So, you know, as a chef, would you ever go into work and just show up and start cooking just for no money and just make food for people? Like, I mean, maybe if they needed it, right? But it wouldn't be the expectation for you to use that gift and that talent for nothing. And yet, in politics, it's almost always the expectation that because we believe in it, that we're supposed to work for nothing. And granted, there are places, you know, where I still, you know, volunteer and donate my time to candidates outside of the ones that I get compensated for. But we have to be able to, you know, provide for ourselves, you know, basic rent, all of those kinds of things. And so there's nothing inherently evil with charging. I mean, by no means do I charge what, you know, an inside the Beltway DC consultant does. You know, but I have bills to pay too. And what I am really trying to do with this is to be able to give progressives and grassroots campaigns who can't necessarily afford, you know, that inside the Beltway, you know, level, you know, of payment. I try to give them that level of quality, but at something that is more affordable. And so some campaigns, you know, might only pay me for 10 hours a month. Some might pay me for 10 a week. You know, it really just depends. And I try to be as flexible as I can be with them on that. If they can get someone that does some of what I do cheaper, then hire that person, and I can train them, I can consult. There's so many things that we can do to be flexible, but there's nothing inherently evil about getting paid just because you love it.
Staying afloat. Just make sure that that's not your goal, because honestly, right, the nonprofit world is not where you go to get paid.
That's true.
Well,
that's
maybe, well, no, I shouldn't say it. Yeah, I will say it. Maybe if your name's Clinton, but otherwise, it's not a place to go to get paid.
No, and if you are in it for the money, then there's going to be a difference in the candidates you support, right? So if I was really in it for the money and I wanted to, I could try to go work for the Cory Bookers, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren, and those
right,
kinds of people. But I don't necessarily support all the things they do. I did support Liz Warren at one point, but she's been kind of disappointing lately. And B, I can't do that from my house in my pajamas. And so that's kind of the other blessing of this is, whatever hours I want to work, it's, I'm my own boss. And I never imagined that I'd be in a position to do this, but it's cool to be able to do it and do it for people that I care in and believe in.
Viva la basement dwellers revolution.
That's right. That's where it starts. All the best things start in the basement. Wait, did I say that? It's interesting. So many of us have gotten together as part of, whether it's Bernie's revolution or, it was candidates like Sam. We have all, met through this. And you're one of those people. There's so many great, talented people that I treasure that are trying to do good things. So I fully support it, and, keep doing what you do, because we got the fight of our lives ahead.
Yeah, right on, sister. So, LaDonna, I really appreciate you coming by, or not really coming by, but showing up in a Zoom chat.
Sure. If people want to follow me out there in the social media sphere, you can find me on Twitter at @polybent, POLIBENT. I have a little page that I don't often pay attention to, but trying to more lately, The Political Bent on Facebook, and then just friend me, whatever. As long as you're not a pedophile, decent person, I'll usually accept a friend request.
And trust me, folks, LaDonna's cool. You should follow her for sure.
Aw, thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I wish the best of luck for you and all of your campaigns, and keep that spirit up.